The 2020 season of Formula One has been an eventful one, especially under the current situation that everyone in the world is currently facing. A few drivers had to sit out of a few races after a positive test, and one driver had to miss out 2 rounds of the season after a horrific crash that scared everyone, not only in the paddock, but watching around the world as well. In today's video, we take a look at the super subs of Formula One 2020. Let's start off with the newest addition to the F1 circus, Pietro Fittipaldi. After a horrifying start to the Bahrain Grand Prix, with Romain Grosjean hitting a crash barrier at high speeds, he suffered minor injuries that would mean he would not be able to take part in the final 2 races of the season in Sakhir and Abu Dhabi. With the Formula 2 season rounding off in Sakhir, and Mick Schumacher and Callum Ilott, who were both linked to a seat for 2021 with the team, unavailable to make the step up as they were in the title fight, Haas opted for one of their own test and reserve drivers, Pietro Fittipaldi, the grandson of 2-time F1 world champion Emerson Fittipaldi, giving the race seat for the rest of the season. With little F1 experience, he finished in a respectable 17th in Sakhir and 19th in Abu Dhabi. Although he did finish last in each race, for a new driver into Formula One with a car that has proved to be uncompetitive, he did hold up well, as in the Sakhir Grand Prix he finished 2 places behind Magnussen, his teammate, and only 1 place lower in the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, showing he wasn't that far off the pace and had an overall good performance for a rookie. The current pandemic has impacted many lives this year and has also had an impact on Formula One. For one team in particular, this had been a large factor impacting 3 of their races. This team is Racing Point. At the start of the British Grand Prix, it was noted that Sergio Perez had tested positive for the virus, meaning he could not take part in the race. This left Racing Point with 2 options of reserve drivers, which they have with Mercedes, Stoffel Van Dorn and Esteban Gutierrez. But who did they choose? Racing Point realised that both these drivers had not taken part in an F1 race in a long time, so they looked elsewhere, only to find the availability of Formula Renault driver Nico Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg has raced with this team before when it was known as Force India, and for a guy who said he would never wear a pink racing suit, he sure did look the part in it. On the Hulk's hectic return, he arrived late in the evening on Thursday, but luckily for him, the Racing Point headquarters is in Silverstone, meaning he was able to get a seat moulded and fitted for the Friday practice. He did have a nervy wait for his rapid COVID test to come back before the start of FP1, but he was able to enter the paddock just in time. On the build-up to his return to Grand Prix racing, he found himself sat in P13 to start the race. Unfortunately, that didn't go to plan, with the Racing Point garage not being able to get his car started, meaning he would retire the car before he even got going. Was this the end of the Hulk? No. With Perez still recovering from the virus, it meant that the 70th anniversary Grand Prix held at Silverstone was still open to him to race. He managed to qualify, this time 3rd on the grid, and put in a good race, but due to poor strategy, he ended up finishing in 7th, right behind Stroll. Coincidence? Let's not dig into that. Many thought this was the last time we would see Hulkenberg in a Formula One car for the rest of time. However, one final opportunity came up for the Eiffel Grand Prix at the Nürburgring when Lance Stroll fell ill on the Friday and was unable to take part in practice. Not that there was any running on the Friday anyway. For the only practice session of the weekend, the number 18 side of the Racing Point garage lay bare, before the Hulk made another dramatic return to drive the car for the rest of the weekend. With Nico having only qualifying to learn the track, he started P20 on the grid, but did make his way up to 8th, securing more points for himself and the team. In the Drivers' Championship, having only taken part in 2 Grand Prix races, he finished 15th above Kimi Räikkönen in 16th. Nico the Hulk Hulkenberg has shown he is still the passion to drive in Formula One. Hey, maybe in 2022 he may get that chance once again. 2020 was yet another successful season for Mercedes, wrapping up both titles with a few races to go. But it wasn't all smooth sailing, with the Sakir Grand Prix proving to be the only major hiccup along the way. For Formula One fans who began to say that Red Bull are the favourites to win the race, all it took was for Lewis Hamilton to test positive after his race win in the Bahrain Grand Prix. This left Mercedes in a relatively easy place, as the reserve driver Stoffel van Dorn had just finished off his test with the Mercedes Formula E team, meaning he was available for the race and was flying out to Bahrain anyway. However, with many fans of the team seeing that they had already beaten the competition in all things Formula One this season, they would have nothing to lose by letting the Williams' George Russell, a part of the Mercedes driver program, have a go to see how he really performs. When the news broke that George would get this fairy tale seat at Mercedes for the upcoming Sakir Grand Prix, everyone was so excited to see how he would perform alongside Bottas, or if he would even beat him, as filling in for a 7-time world champion, you really do want to prove your worth to the team. On the Friday practice, George didn't go without his struggles. By having to wear a size and a half smaller racing boots so he could use the pedals properly, learning new buttons and DAS function on the steering wheel, but also the fact he was in a race seat that was moulded for him 3 years ago when he first got to test our Mercedes car. With all these small issues, it did not faze George. When it came to getting up to speed, he was the fastest in practice 1 and 2. It wasn't until he began to do the race simulations and tyre management he was slower in the third practice. When it came to qualifying, George did not hold back, putting pressure on Valtteri Bottas, who kept having his times deleted, but it wasn't until the last lap shootout, when the time had finished for the session, did Valtteri take P1 from George by only 0.026 of a second. In the race, however, George went past Valtteri in turn 1 and was pulling away from the grid fast. It wasn't until later in the race and poor timing from the Mercedes pit crew did things start to fall apart. With a really bad pit stop with George having on Valtteri Bottas' tyres, he would have to pit again, which put him out into 5th and compromised his race, but he managed to pull back into P2 behind Sergio Perez. However, it didn't end there for the Brit, as his new set of tyres had a rear left puncture, meaning he would again have to pit, bringing him out at the back of the midfield, which he clawed away to only reach P9, and his first ever points finish ever, but did get the bonus for the fastest lap, so wasn't too bad. So much was going right for George that weekend, and showed great pace that could have led him to his first ever Formula One win. The fairy tale drive this time wasn't just meant to have a happy ending. As previously mentioned, due to the absence of Lewis Hamilton for the Sakir Grand Prix and George Russell filling in for him, this then left an open seat opportunity for Williams' race weekend, but who could fill the seat appropriately in such short notice? Williams have the largest pool of test/reserve drivers to choose from due to the young drivers program they're attached to. They could have had Jack Aitken, Roy Nissany, Dan Ticktum, or Jamie Chadwick. The most obvious choice was, of course, Jack Aitken, who had experience in the car with an FP1 run-out during the Styrian Grand Prix. It would mark the end of a long wait for the former Renault young driver who had competed in Formula 2 for the past 3 seasons. His performance over the weekend was relatively good, being in the Williams for the first time for a full race weekend. His qualifying performance was almost on par with teammate Nicholas Latifi, being only 1/10 slower. In the race, however, things didn't go as planned for Aitken. After a decent start to his first Grand Prix race, he managed to keep his position and keep up the best he could with the back of the field, and finished up in 16th, finishing second last after 3 DNFs of Sergio Perez, Charles Leclerc and teammate Nicholas Latifi. It was his mistake coming onto the pit lane straight, where he had ran wide and knocked his front wing off the car, meaning he had to go back into the pits, but managed to finish the race ahead of Fittipaldi. Overall, for Aitken's first time out, he did show strength in car control and his ability to maintain good pace, for the Williams anyways. So, there you have it, the super subs of the 2020 Formula 1 season. Who was your favourite? Let us know in the comments below. If you did enjoy today's video, why not drop us a like? If you're new around here and enjoy what we do, why not consider subscribing? We also have a website, theapexmotorsport.com, where you can read articles on all things Formula 1. Comment down below which Super Sub driver impressed you the most. Thank you all for watching, and if you'd like to see another video, check on one that's on screen now.